Hello, everyone. We are here today with Cassandra Peterson. Cassandra is just this most awesome person, and I'm going to put it out there right now. She's someone who I met here in Costa Rica. You can see her background there. It's like beautiful tropical palapa. She's my neighbor now. But Cassandra is so many things all rolled into one, right? Like she is a entrepreneur. She is a holistic spiritual coach. She has been setting up like businesses, and we're gonna dive into her story today because it is such a cool inspirational thing. We were just talking before getting on here, getting all warmed up, and I am excited to hear all the lessons that she has to share. So Cassandra, thank you so much for making the time to come on today.
Thank you so much. I look forward to this interview.
All right. Well, maybe take us back, right? Like not to when you were born, right? But take us back to kind of a little bit like the start of your entrepreneurial journey and kind of some of the main highlights of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I guess if I take it back to the entrepreneurial journey, it's like before you know you're an entrepreneur, you're always working, or you're working in sales, or you're doing these things and you're working for other people. And then it slowly moves into contract work. And then you realize, wait, if I'm really good at all of these things for other people, what would it be like if I just did it all for myself? And so my entrepreneurial spirit probably spans over 20 some years. For me as a mom, when you become a mom, that really what encapsulates it, because a lot of us, I feel, do these home-based businesses, whether we go through MLMs or, things that we could do at our home. We run a baby daycare. Like I've done all of those things along the way in my journey. And that's probably where the entrepreneurial spirit has come from. And when I made the decision that I want my own business was back in 2011, and then started taking a lot of professional development courses on business, personal development courses on self. And at that time, getting into holistic healing and all of that out of a family emergency need. And those two combined over the last 20 years ended up in Costa Rica 6 years ago, all coming together.
Oh, that is just so exciting. Okay, so then you end up landing here in Costa Rica 6 years ago. But what was people don't just land in Costa Rica like, oh, I just accidentally landed in Costa Rica, right? Like Sandra's from Canada to Costa Rica. Like you don't just like walk across the border. How did that end up happening?
That's a great question. And that's true. So I looked at, in my journey of becoming a practitioner of holistic health and alternative medicine, that journey started because of my husband at the time got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And we had 5 children together. We were a blended family. And my youngest at the time was 2. And it wasn't an option at that time for him to die.
I have goosebumps all over, right? Like I'm just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, these are the life-changing things that I never wish any kind of that kind of diagnosis to anybody. And I can easily say it ended up being a real blessing. And unless you've been through something like that, and I know many people who would probably say those kinds of things on some level, if you go through such a different journey of healing and looking at life so differently. Yeah. And that's the blessing in it. It wasn't without trials or hardships and things like that. No. But in that scenario, that was back in 2006. And we had to climb ourselves out of a paradigm to figure out how to save him. And the medical system in Canada was a huge waiting list. And that gave us an opportunity to look at how serious the cancer was and what were the options. And there was very few options. So we had to look at an alternative way. Yeah. And that just pushed open what I do now, which is as a holistic healer and practitioner, took all our certification, and my husband did too. And he ended up, we ended up healing them, beating the whole thing. And it was a holistic approach. Yeah. And so through that journey, you learn so much. And it's now, I don't know how many years later, we are in, you know, he's alive and well, and no evidence of disease from a very terminal cancer.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so at that time, just as how Costa Rica came in,
Yeah.
back in 2000 and I will say like 8 or 9, once we understood how the body heals through nutrients and where we're depleted and also mindset, one of the places we looked at of where is the best soil and air quality in the world. I should be a pitch for Costa Rica now. It was Costa Rica and someplace over, which I can't remember now, in Asia, like China, where I didn't want to go. But Costa Rica had the most nutrient dense soil because we did a lot of work with soil and pH of the soil in the body.
Yeah.
So it was Costa Rica and best air quality. And at that time when the internet wasn't like it is now, looking at, okay, well, what's in Costa Rica? Let's research that a little bit. And all I saw were big spiders and snakes and like the jungle side of Costa Rica. I'm like, well, that's never going to happen. So, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then my husband and I, we decided to consciously divorce, part ways on that level and still raise our children together. We actually ended up having one more child after he was healed, ironically. And I re-looked at that in 2015, Costa Rica. And then by then there was more information. Yeah. There was international schools here. Still, it was important to me for air quality. I've always wanted to live in the jungle. And I approached my husband and I said, that's what I want to do with the kids. And he said, yeah, do it. And I thought, well, I'm going to go. I'm going to regroup my kids. My kids had real struggles. They had real struggles. You know, my one daughter had a diagnosis. And I just thought that was a great place that I could just ground into myself and do my healing practice.
Amazing. So then you come down here with just in mind, you know, I'm going to try out Costa Rica for a while and I'm going to do my healing practice.
Actually, it was more like I'm going to Costa Rica and never coming back to Canada.
And this was before all the other stuff that has happened with Canada. So you were like you were way ahead of the game, right?
I was ahead of the game. And I was pleasantly surprised when I got here, which really helped my children transition. There was a larger expat community here than I had thought there would be. Yeah. And that really helped my children, first of all, my teenager to not, you know, hate me as bad as she did, pulling her away from her social life. And it just ended up being very supportive for that. That wasn't a shock to our systems. But I was grounded in that when I moved here, I was here to stay. And that actually is a huge part of anything that I've learned that you do. When you make the decision and you're rooted into that foundational point, you get success. Because when the wind blows and the storms come, like they do as a mom, as life has it, I wasn't moving. And my teenager tried to make me move. She thanked me later. She's 20 now.
Oh, I'm gonna count how many times that I'm having goosebumps during this conversation, because that just resonates. And I'm sure that like if there's other women listening, and I know because this actually happened when I talked to you not too long ago, like having this like moment of I'm making the decision, I'm really just grounding into that decision, like nothing is gonna move me. And I love that, because that's in mom life, that's in business, that's in regular life. If you're talking about like things like terminal illness or a teenager, right? Like, you know, we don't have to go like terminal on it, right? But teenagers or separations or any of these things, or look, if you're thinking about like COVID and business crises and things that are moving and shifting all the time. And right before we got on this call, we were also talking about just when you think you have life like all figured out and you're all organized and your schedule's going, and your life's like, hey, now I'm going to throw some more things away. So when you're grounded in and you know exactly what you want to do and what your purpose is, like nothing's going to move you. I think that's just one of those beautiful golden nuggets that if we don't stop and like focus on that for a moment, we'll lose it. But that is so, so important. So you were here and you weren't moving.
I wasn't. I just knew it, and my kids knew it. Yeah. So, and it ended up sprouting and growing into something that I hadn't foreseen in any of what I was thinking I was going to do and what came through as an opportunity.
Okay.
Which was the creation of my with kombucha and making kombucha and then creating a successful kombucha drink company here in a foreign country. That was never on my radar. I wasn't planning to be a kombucha brewer, but there's the phrase in business that you've probably heard, and maybe many viewers, is the definition of luck. And the real definition of luck, because people say, oh, you're so lucky. And I said, yeah, I'm really lucky. And I learned early on, the definition was where opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and the kombucha came forward as to make it in this country. I was asked to help make it and brand it because I had a client struggling with weight loss. Okay, sure. Let's make it. Let's slap a label on it. You take it out there. I'll help you brand it. And that was when the big fun started in Costa Rica, and the journey really, really came in.
Okay, so then it's so funny because people don't just, well, in general, like you just decide to start a kombucha business. But again, you had someone who came and there was a need, right? This is, again, like one of those essential business mentality that you're bringing with you, which is why I love that you're creating such a big impact, because that grew. You just took an idea, you ran with it. There was a woman who needed help with weight loss. You had an idea, you're like, oh, let's try it out, let's go. And you took off to the point where people were calling you, right, that the kombucha queen. So
yes.
And that kombucha is not where you're at now, right? So what happened there in that journey, right? Like it took off, you were growing this amazing big company in a completely different country. And then what?
Yeah. What you don't know, because I haven't shared this with you, is that first year that we saw that there was opportunity to grow this in Costa Rica. I partnered with this woman and she was fluent in Spanish. So that was the saving grace because I didn't have Spanish. So that was key for that first year in business and understanding this culture, and then creating a really good product and fine tuning it. So they always say that first year in business will tell you everything. And all of the things that I ever learned in all my courses and certifications that you learn by the book and by hearing and all of those things only make sense when you're actually experiencing it live. You know, like things like don't grow your business too fast. Do it slowly. Well, we grew, like, it was like we tapped a well, and kombucha, we went from 0 to being in 88 stores within 11 months in a foreign country in this area. And in that process, we were brewing a very live, cultured product that none of us brewed commercially. Yeah. And I said, okay, we have to slow down. There's a problem. Literally, kombucha started exploding. So to make a long story short,
I was just thinking right before you were saying that, like you exploded. Like, literally, I had that word.
Yeah, it's everything is so metaphoric. Like in what happened in my kombucha business to what actually happened. Like not only was the kombucha volatile and exploding, the weather was changing. The business relationship was exploding. Like so many things that go on behind the scenes that you don't see in startups. You only see here. You're not seeing what goes on back there. Yeah. Because we grew it too fast, because we didn't know what we were doing, because we had conflict of mindset through this, that eventually we crashed, and we crashed pretty hard. And I stepped away and gave everything to my partner because I wouldn't do this fast, and I wouldn't destroy a beautiful thing through integrity or strength of character. And that was really, at the end of the day, walking away from something that was a real moneymaker for strength of character is still what I live by today. And when that happened, that transition happened, I had to give it all away. I had to, and walk away. And I was okay with that. Yeah. And then what was left on the table was opportunity again to create my own kombucha without a partner. And I knew the market, as well as that's when I brought DevineYouHealing in as the brand. And at that time, at the same time, I was working with indigenous grandmothers here who were making really good medicines for me from the soil, which was the original reason I came.
Right. That
So
rich soil.
I decided to brand that under Divine You. And then when the kombucha piece came in, I put it all under one umbrella, and away I went under one umbrella, and then built the kombucha the way I wanted to. And the other kombucha company folded. She couldn't maintain it. So, but I learned so much, grateful to this day for that experience.
Oh my, yeah. And I want to again pick out a couple of like the key golden nuggets that I'm taking out of your journey, right? To be able to slow down, right? To act from integrity, right? Like the money wasn't leading. It was that you were really, really, truly behind this product as something that would heal people. And you were seeing literally from the explosions on all different fronts that it wasn't a healing product anymore. Being able to step away, right? Recognizing something is not working and stepping away. And then with that stepping away, creating the space and the opportunity for something new and better. Yeah. Right. So there's so many things in that story. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you learned a lot. So then you came back, you got this, you bundled everything under Divine You. And that's, so the kombucha, right? Like literally, I mean, not writing the exploding rocket part, but it has led you to here, and you're still doing the kombucha, but on a different, it's arranged differently now, right?
Yeah. Now so over the years, as I decided to work the way that you should work in a company, and you have to remember too, I was a mom, and that was also the most important part of that. So I would only go with the business as stable as my kids were. Yeah. Which ended up a very blessing in Costa Rica, because Costa Rica actually allows for that.
Yeah.
If you're only as fast here as the slowest sloth. So I just made that up.
Oh,
I know, it's true, right? Like you're here.
Yeah, but I had the image, right? Like, and if anyone who's watching this doesn't know how slowly a sloth moves, please Google it, because they're like the slowest creatures ever. I mean, you think koalas are slow, sloths are even slower, right? Like they do not move. They're like,
yeah,
right? And that's the pace of life here. That's why they call it pura vida. It's like pure life. It's like everything is just like chilled out and slow, which can be nice. But like the example I used the other day, like when you want to get your car back from the mechanic, it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? So
like, you have to pick up your kids at a certain part, and a bunch of slow tractors isn't helping cause.
Or cows
driving there. So yeah, that whole I forgot your question now. I totally
no. So the way that you repackaged Divine You and brought everything under one, you still got the kombucha and you're continuing on, but it's taken a different form now.
So that's where I could put the business marketing into play. So I structured it where I could see what I wanted to do and what each phase would do in the company, including the product, myself as doing my practice with consulting, and then the kombucha on its own. And kombucha took up a big chunk of that as I grew it. Yeah. And that part of it with the business, I could see that I would reach a point where I was going to get into the market again with the kombucha at a level that I would have to grow it and make that decision then. Yeah. And that's where this last year, came in post-COVID. That changed it. Post-COVID for me changed the direction of the healing, as you can imagine, because a lot of people went through stress. And so my practice increased. Yeah. Which then gave me time to reevaluate the business and the kombucha and the products and how we would do that moving forward after sort of things had settled down.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they settled down, the kombucha started coming back up, but my consulting business did not move. Like it was just there. So they were both ready. They've both been ready to just go. And you have to be able to know yourself. You have to be able to go, you know what? I've deluded myself, diluted, where I'm one person and all my particles are going anywhere. And then I get off balance. My kids suffer.
Right. So exactly that, though, for the people who are maybe like in that process, right? Because you see it a lot that people don't recognize their own boundaries. They don't know when they're reaching that breaking point because this is exactly what you do with supporting people who aren't able to figure it out themselves where that boundary is. And you see with the amount of burnouts, right? And people who develop chronic illnesses, that people don't know their own boundaries. They can't find their own balance. what are some of the things that you're like, for you, right? Just for your own perspective, or maybe even from like how you see it in your clients, how are some of the ways that you can recognize when you are getting to that point where something has to shift, right? Where things are getting out of balance?
Well, the extreme of that is you forget to pick up your kid somewhere till 2 hours
Yeah.
later. Which
You're laughing like it happened to you.
yes, it's devastating the first time it happened to me. So I've been there before as an understanding. So I made a commitment to myself that that would always be for me. Because this is really a badass mom, video, and the woman, and being a balance of women, balancing like entrepreneurial as a woman and a wife, some of us, and a mom, and all of these points that we hold, we can do it all. But there's a point you have to be able to slow down. And this is a universal law. The universal law to that is when you slow down, the universe does it for you. If we think we are smarter than the biggest creator, that if we go fast enough, hard enough, long enough, that we will make it happen, we are actually slowing down what is coming to us. This is a universal law. And so
I like that. Just let's pause for it. I was like, when you don't slow down, the universe will do it for you.
Exactly. And it's not pretty, because you will get burned. You will have this, or you'll have anxiety, or you will just, it's not possible. We're not designed to have superhuman, force. Our bodies have to rest, and our mind have to rest. And then some of the biggest mentors that I've had, one of the things that they always say is like, when things get really bad, like you can't make that business deal go, or it's so stressful, you go golfing. Yeah. Because when you're golfing, it's figuratively, and if you like golfing, it's like,
I'm guessing it was a man that said that. I'm guessing it was a man. I was like, okay, or you go for a walk on the beach, or you do yoga or meditation, or whatever you do, but like you do something that chills out. I
love golf as a woman. Like I love golf. So I would love, But yes, the concept is that that was coined back in the patriarchal days where women stayed home and men did that, right? Of business deals. But the lesson is still very powerful, whether it's yoga or whatever. And that's really hard for us to do. That's really hard for women to do, to turn it off.
Yeah.
And I tell people, don't believe me, try it.
Well, it's so funny. It's so funny that you're saying this, because I've been looking more and more also at your cycles and how that affects like your energy and your mood and things. Yeah. And one of the women that I interviewed earlier, she was also she's a cycle-based business coach, so teaching you like how to deal with this stuff. And I think that's so fascinating. And normally I push, even though I've gotten much better here. Living here for a year will again allow you to like chill out, slow down your pace of life. But yesterday, I was like on the first day of a cycle, and I was like feeling like I just wanted to go back to bed. I was like, I just want to sleep. I have no energy. And I had all this stuff on my list of stuff to do because, it was Tuesday. It's the start of the week, right? And I just went and laid down and I took a nap for like an hour and a half. And I felt like so guilty about it. But then when I got up, I swear to God, I did 2 hours of work in the 1 hour that I had left before going to pick the kids. And I was just like so much more focused and so much more on it. And there was no pressure. And I took the time to rest and to recharge. So exactly that, which I know would not have happened if I'd been like half asleep, like trying to do my work things. Yeah.
You'll get the results by how you feel in your body. Yeah. So if you're feeling fatigued and all that, you're doing the work, you're going to get that the responses will come back this way.
Yeah.
Or things don't move as fast, and you do this long enough in any business, how you learn things. This is what's really doing. And that's why I call myself a spiritual mentor and coach as well, because there is the laws of the universe that
but also holistic, right? You're taking all the different parts. I love the word holistic, because when I got into hormone balance coaching, it was also this. I was like, it's not just diet and exercise. Right. And they took also the fact of like all the feelings and how you're experiencing stress in your body. You're like taking a whole new level, right, of the universe and all the metaphysical quantum stuff, right? I haven't even gone into that, right? So I don't even know all the layers. But being in Costa Rica, and this is another one of those things, if you're looking at like spirituality or changing how you're looking, I was like, we ended up here for a reason. And just being open to the fact that there are more things going on in life. And I love that that's what you're doing in your business as well, is you're tapping into all the different things that affect people's bodies on whole different levels.
Yeah, exactly. So
then I'm just like, what kind of things do you help people with? Like, that's more of the curiosity is coming up for me now, because I know you've got these, you're like talking about grandmothers and products. And I know because I've came to you and I got some this awesome stuff called dragon's blood, right? Like, it sounds so creepy, but it's just like sap from a tree. Although my kids love it. They're like, can I have some dragon's blood on me? Right? Like, this is the most fun name, but I've seen your, like, more of your products. So I'm curious, like, because those are the physical products, but what more are you, how are you supporting people in their health and wellness journey?
So I have combined holistic medicine, and I work with clients one-on-one or in packages where I take them through 1 to 3 months of whatever it is that they're working on. So if it's a real deep issue, I structure that coaching and those healing sessions around that particular issue that they're having. I have people that come to me for those kinds of things, really deep physical issues like autoimmune diseases and things that the mainstream medicine isn't hearing them. Right. And I'm trained in the biotoxin route on the holistic side, like functional medicine, we'll say, where you can combine both the West world medicine with Eastern practices and herbs and medicines and indigenous things combining. Then the relationship part of that is the quantum mechanics of healing the codes in the body. So some people say, well, what are codes? Well, we're on algorithms, and we have our human hard drive, and then we have software updated into our body based on our environment, where we lived in the world, what went into us from our childhood, and those need updating. So I'm trained in that, and I have been gifted with some abilities, really strong abilities in my life to do that. So every session is keyed into the person from what they're working on. I have tools that I'm trained in. A lot of it is geared toward the missing piece of healing, which is those algorithms. Some people call that healing work. Some people call that energy work. Some people call that, or know it as Reiki. It's beyond the Reiki. It's actually less divine and more physics and science. Right? So I make energy work have substance and tangible.
Well, I love the way that you just broke it down for me right now. I think it's one of the first times that someone in like 20 seconds, right? 20, 30 seconds has really said, well, what mechanics is, and this is your code, and this is this, right? It just made it like, I was like, okay, that makes so much sense. And that we're just looking for a missing piece, and it can be in a number of different places. And what the word that comes up for me right now when I'm hearing you say, I was like, how incredibly powerful that is. Because you're talking about healing people with autoimmune diseases, right? And it stems all the way back to your experience of having that diagnosis, right, with your husband, then of this terminal cancer, and seeing that incredibly powerful proof that a different approach, right, whether it's functional medicine or it's the quantum, is it quantum mechanics? Yes, quantum mechanics, right? I'm getting all the wording down, right? Finding that missing piece in the code. Before you know it, I'm going to learn a lot from you, right? I learn every day. But that there's so much more possible if you're willing to like open up and accept that there are different ways of healing and changing than we know so far, right? It's that huge piece of the pie. And this comes up in so many of the interviews. It's very interesting. But that piece of the pie, the what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But just having that openness and that willingness to accept that, hey, maybe the solution to all the crap that I'm going through, all my suffering, all my pain, is something that I had no idea even existed, but that someone else has that key.
Yeah, I call those blind spots. So we have our own blind spots, even myself, right? I can't see it until I can see it. So when we're dealing with stress, illness, situational stress, issues of all of these kinds, we can logically try to think, okay, this is my root, this is my issue. But the blind spot is so prevalent because we have this thing called our conscious brain, and it lies to us all the time. It's a justifiable 1 + 1 = 2, so therefore it is. But in quantum mechanics, like 1 + 1 = 3. So that consciousness lies, and when you're trained in bypassing that for the person, we get with the blind spots that they already knew. Like they already knew that it's there, but they couldn't read their own code because of this thing that wanted to lie. And that's usually because we have perceptions and beliefs. And that's really what we're looking at. So then once you do that and they can see it, that's where quantum physics comes in, because that's where the observable point. But even more than that, I'm trained with the specific technique to put those codes back in so that their program goes into homeostasis and can heal from there. And sometimes that means you have to do something in the physical body to change that. Yeah. And eventually the solution for that is to teach people how to discern for themselves, how to read their own body language, how to listen to the body. Because at the end of the day, I'm one person. And if you learn how to do this and somebody else learns how to do this, you can move mountains. And that's the goal of all of these sessions.
To help people, to create that impact in their own life, or to teach it to other people, right? Like to create that, because what I hear is self-awareness, right? Yeah.
Self-awareness, and to know when the body's talking to him, to know, listen, this is my body talking. This is what I need to do now. Or I heard the still small voice, or spirit, or God, or creator, or whatever those words that I need to do this, trusting the intuition, learning that. But you can't get there when you're in pain, when you're distressed. We have to get the body back in and pull out the root that is the issue blocking this that you can't find. It's like a computer. If I have a problem with my computer, I cannot fix it. I won't even try. Everybody have one of those, where your computer starts to slow down. And we try to run all of these virus programs. This is what I do. And then it's kind of gets a little better. And then eventually it just gets so sluggish. And I know I'm out of space, but I think, okay, now I might have a virus. And so what do we do when we're frustrated? Instead of taking it somewhere, I could shut it, thinking if I just turn it off, tomorrow when I boot it up, the problem will be gone. It'll somehow work faster, and you turn it on and it's literally got the same virus. So I have to take it to someone that knows code, that knows how to do it, gets rid of the virus, takes the software and puts new information in. But the computer hard drive never changes unless you have to update that. So that's what I do for the human body.
That is I love that metaphor, because it's just so funny, because I've literally had computers and you're like in such denial. I'm like, there's nothing wrong. I can run a virus scan on it. And like exactly that. Well, if you've ever had a TV that's like restarted when you just hit it, so you're like, maybe if I just like knock it a few times or bang it, like it'll start up. Or, when you have batteries in a remote and you wiggle them a little and then they keep running for a little bit, but then they die again. Like it's similar to that. Like it's a temporary fix, or it doesn't work at all. And the point is, you need someone who knows what they're doing to help you reboot. So you're not changing the hardware, but you're clearing all the crap in between that's slowing you down and causing you not to function well. Fantastic.
You're seeing software program no longer matches your hard drive. I'm taking it out and putting it in. Updating the new version.
Oh, I love that. That is it. That makes it just so clear. I think you should use that.
To make it more practical, like it's not woo-woo all out there so much, right? A lot of people resist that kind of work because they can't get their beliefs around it.
Well, it is funny because it is woo-woo and it isn't at the same time. And I had a huge resistance for, I would even say, like decades, right? With this, because I'm very scientifically trained. Like I have a research master's degree, and yet my mom has been a Reiki master for 20 years. And so I actually got trained very early in that. And it was always this weird like clash in my head, because I knew that if I did Reiki on myself, I could literally make cramps go away. I could make my headaches go away. So I knew that it worked, right? But I couldn't explain it. And I feel like this is what's happened over the last couple of decades as well. And it's still in process, right? That science is finally catching up to being able to explain all that other stuff that's out there, right? Like it doesn't mean it doesn't work, but before it was just, oh, we can't explain it, so it must be woo-woo. And now it's figuring out like, there is a lot of explanation that's super logical, and you can break it down like this, and this, exactly like you're talking about, like the computers and the code. And it's just knowing the language and how to tap into it. but it's all within reach. And I think that's the thing that's starting to be so cool. And like in this whole, we're really in this crazy era of transition right now where it all is becoming much more accessible, and different people with different skill sets like yourselves that are being able to tap into that to really create massive impact, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're creating so much impact in people's lives. You're being able to like help them like reboot their systems, to get rid of autoimmune disease, to cure like illnesses that are like incurable. That's so powerful.
Well, and the other thing, if we bring it back to business, like let's say you have a business issue, you can literally be weakened by your own business based on what your software is doing, including just one word like empowerment, like women's empowerment or the word empowerment. We literally could somewhere, not knowing that that word actually weakens us every time we use it. So I've worked with people with creating their business so that the languaging that they're using is strong to them. Otherwise it can literally weaken, and they might have all of the dots lined up and everything looks good. And they're like, why can't I attract clients? So this it's so multifaceted of what I do, but that's just
so cool.
Teaching people, wow, I didn't know that could stem and open up a whole thing. And we do this really fast. I mean, this isn't like where you have to be 10 years on psychoanalyzing, you know, your childhood trauma that can come into it. So I love that. And this is really what I love to do. And I love that we're in an era of time, especially post-COVID, where we're starting to ask ourselves more soul level questions. We're starting to really, we have to for our own evolution in our spirit. And we're not new spirits, we're old souls. And for women, we have had a really long millennia of suppression. And how do we bring that gift that the feminine has and that mother in us has, and change it in a new era that we're coming into? So that's
my fourth set of goosebumps right there. You know, like that's, you know, where you're going now is, sorry, I interrupted.
So that's now where it's so beautiful as the kombucha has done its thing, and the business model for that is finally structured in a way that it can perpetuate itself with the right people in place. This is where, you know, inspiring women, empowering women, and reminding them who they are really takes it at that soul level journey. And that's where I've always wanted to go. So that's kind of like journey, which over 20 years, you think when you start something, I want to impact women, or I want to do this. And before you know it, 20 years get by, and then you're like, oh, now I get it.
Well, I think this is a beautiful segue into the last question that I actually want to ask you, which is like, if you're looking at these other women, right? Because you've been in business now, or business mindset, right? For 20 years, you've created this incredibly like financially successful business, took a step back from it, reinvented, repackaged, or finding your ways to create incredible impact on other people's lives, right? What advice or tips would you give to women who are maybe a little bit earlier on in the journey, right? And then maybe struggling a little either in finding their voice, or attracting the right clients, or getting that money going, or just finding their enjoyment in their business, right? So that it's not taking over.
Great question. Two things that come to mind with that is invest in yourself. Read books, take advice from people that have what you want and have been where you are, number one, right? Find mentors, even if you never speak to them, but that are, you know, writing books or doing things if you don't have the funds. The second thing that is never, ever, ever let money be a reason why you don't do something. And I've struggled in some ways with that until I made the decision to come to Costa Rica and do it. That's it, period. And that has served me well. And I, you know, the last 8 years, I was a single mother. Well, the first 4, well, I'm still a single mother. I have a partner now, but I just knew that I could do it. And little by little, I just planted the seeds. So those two things often weaken us. And the other thing is about the mentor. The third thing is never, ever, ever. I don't know if I should use it that way, but never, ever, ever compare yourself to me, to you, to any other woman.
No.
Actually, just see if they have something that you want and they have been where you are. That's our collective story. So comparing doesn't serve anything, including in your niche market. So
no,
if I
so be inspired and motivated, right? Instead of because I know that exactly right. Then you know on the mindset front and also how your brain works. Never ever ever do this. Your brain leaves that totally out. Says, oh, I should compare myself, right? But I get the point that you're bringing in. Exactly that. Allow yourself to be inspired and motivated by the other women around you or the other people who are in a different place in business than you are right now. But don't use that as like a measuring stick as to what your own worth is or your own value or your own progress.
Yeah. What really worked well for me, and the never ever doesn't key in as well. Worked well.
It was really emphasis
so strong.
It was good.
Like, oh man, you can't do that. But what worked for me and what I tell my clients right now is no, that's not correct. I said, stay in your lane. Focus on what you're doing in your niche market. If I looked at anybody else in kombucha, I was not half as good as them if I were starting to compare it. I didn't listen to anybody except for
and that could have influenced one, because so if you had, all right, just to play the devil's advocate here, right? Like if you had been like, oh, let me pay attention to all these other businesses and companies and what they're doing, one, you wouldn't have created the awesome product that you did. You probably wouldn't have had the same success, and you would have contributed the success to someone else, because then you're like, oh, but I didn't create this on my own and I did this. So when you're staying in your lane, it's not just your own business idea, but it's also that, again, trusting yourself and your own ability to do that. Because that's what I heard in that second tip as well, was underneath the don't let money be a reason to stop you. It was also the believe in yourself. No, because you said, I knew I could do it. Right? That belief in yourself.
I trusted it. I trusted the universe. I trusted all of my training. I trusted what I had heard over the years. That's why I said, invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even when I didn't have money and I didn't know how I was going to take that course or I was going to do that. And some maybe were horrible courses. And eventually
it doesn't mean you don't, and this doesn't mean the investing in yourself doesn't mean we never make mistakes, right? Like I want to put that out there because I know that as well. And I've seen it from, my partner and all the investment in different courses and different mentors and things. Like some investments are better than others, but the point is that you get back up and you keep investing, and however that form looks like for you, right? Like absorbing books or podcasts or videos or following other people on social media that are inspirational and that are going to light your fire. And really that motivation as well to keep going, right? Just that you're constantly like allowing yourself to absorb these stories also of success to help you focus. I think that's what it is, right? Like you're constantly nurturing yourself.
Yeah, you have to trust yourself. And as long as the mistake part, to see this lady who was in her 70s and she taught this like incredible technique and tools. Like she created this technique, which is one of them that I use in my practice today. But she was literally out of this world. And when I would go to some of her seminars, she was in her 70s. She was so with I don't know what to create this over a lifetime. And she, in the United States, in her younger years, when she created this, the FTC went after her and like basically shut her business down for using words. Back then it was holistic, anything holistic or non-tangible or technique wise was shut down. So in her 70s she rebuilt it and it became very successful. And she would always introduce herself and say in her seminars, when you went to her, she's like, I'm Mary Miller and I've never had a bad day. And when I first started going to think, come on, lady, and those things that key in, like, never have a bad day. Like, I know positive affirmations and all, but how do you never have a bad day? It's equal to saying like, I'm Cassandra Peterson and I've never made a mistake. Come on, everybody makes mistakes. But if you key in,
though, it's
like if I look back down the road or the mountain, as we say, to see where I did. I could say nothing was a mistake.
Exactly. I was just about to say, I was like,
Right?
well, when you look at it from the perspective, every mistake is a learning. So
And every bad day it's not a bad day, because everything good that technology has created or things that we've created, including the kombucha for Divine You, got created from something bad. So
yeah.
we never had a bad day, and we never make mistakes. So mistakes are great, all of those things. The languaging, right, that we learn. And then when you finally experience that yourself, then you're like, oh,
that's what she means.
yeah. And
I love this. Actually, I think,
life is a journey, for real.
Exactly. So exactly this, right? So all of these amazing things that you just brought in, like just some more, let me throw some more gold at it, right? No bad days, no mistakes. Yeah. Life is the journey, right? Enjoy the process. Fantastic. I want to, because I feel like we could just keep talking for hours, yeah. But I feel like we brought so much gold to the table. I'm so inspired. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I believe in myself. I'm just going to keep going, right?
Yeah.
So, I love it. I love it. Cassandra, thank you so much. Everyone who's watching, I'm going to post links below so that you know where to find Cassandra, where to find her amazing products and the kombucha if you're local here, or who knows where she's going to go with international, you know? This woman is on fire. So how you can find her, and also her mentoring and everything, if you have holistic health problems or you're just like so attracted to what she's doing, I can tell you that I've seen her in action in person, and she is amazing. So I'll post that below. And Cassandra, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all your wisdom.
Oh, and thank you so much for you putting this on. I love what you're doing. I think you're amazing. You know, this is the badass mom. We need all this support. So this is a great process that you're doing, and I'm so thankful to be a part of it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.